heard her crying. "My baby has no milk." Millionaire's incredible act changes everything forever. Emily's heart raced as she stood frozen on the cracked sidewalk, groceries in hand. The sound of the young mother's muffled sobs through thin walls cut through the dreary afternoon air. "My baby has no milk." Nothing had prepared her for this moment. She had only come to deliver food to Mrs. Jenkins, who needed help after her fall last week. But that desperate plea echoed in her mind, igniting an inner battle. It felt like the weight of her own struggles crashed over her, a tidal wave of anxiety threatening to drown her. She tried to focus on the task at hand, but her thoughts darted back to her son, Jamie, waiting at home. It was hard to shake off the familiar, intrusive thoughts. How would they manage? Was there room in their ever-shallow budget for dreams of better days? Arriving at Mrs. Jenkins's door, she hesitated, battling the instinct to help that young mother, the fear of extending herself further than her already overburdened life allowed. "Emily, dear!" Mrs. Jenkins called, her frail voice breaking Emily's reverie. The older woman smiled from her dimly lit apartment, clearly unaware of the turmoil raging inside Emily. After exchanging pleasantries, Emily found herself thinking, how does one even begin to help someone like that? Her hands trembled as she unpacked the groceries, a mix of exhaustion and unease curling in her stomach. She couldn't be the savior today. Who was she kidding? But every moment she lingered felt like a betrayal to that mother's cries. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. After finishing with Mrs. Jenkins, Emily walked back outside, each step exaggerated by the mounting pressure in her chest. As evening approached, the streetlights flickered on, illuminating her path home. But the shadows of doubt loomed larger. Could she risk accepting help? Would it feel like defeat? Every challenge she faced each day felt Herculean, but every ounce of pride pushed her to stand tall. Meanwhile, somewhere in a luxurious office far removed from her struggles, Jack felt a familiar tug in his heart. The echoes of his own childhood kept him company in his solitude, filling him with a longing to offer more than mere charity. The undeniable reality was, though, that each dollar he donated felt like a screen separating him from connection. As he pondered his efforts to aid the families in distress, he realized the depth of personal dilemmas looming on both sides of their lives. Then, just as Emily felt she might relent and seek assistance, Jamie caught a cold. His weakened cough struck her like a guillotine, and the depth of their financial burden deepened. Time seemed to evaporate, each moment haunted with uncertainty. She retreated within herself, grappling with the question that twisted in her mind. Was she strong enough to do this alone? As the night grew darker, the stakes intensified. Emily was close to breaking. But would she uncover a path forward? She could feel Jack's presence nearing, someone who could amplify her struggles or provide merely a glimmer of hope. Both stood on the brink of a life-altering encounter, their lives tightly woven by the same suffocating community tapestry, unaware that their meeting would not only challenge their beliefs, but also unveil deeper insecurities. A crack formed in their worlds, ready to tear them apart with an unspoken truth. The door was about to open, but would it lead to salvation or merely another layer of conflict? Emily's thoughts spiraled as she crossed the threshold of her apartment, the comforting familiarity of home suddenly feeling like a cage. She gently placed Jamie's small bag of toys on the floor, his cough echoing ominously from the other room. The soft sound was a stark reminder of her helplessness. The inconsolable anguish of the young mother echoed in her mind, as if she were trapped in an endless loop of guilt and indecision. "Mommy!" Jamie's call broke through just as her heart clenched tighter. She rushed into the living room to find him nestled under a blanket, his cheeks flushed and eyes glassy. A pang of fear shot through her like ice. He needed medical attention, but the thought of endless bills and dwindling savings snared her stomach into a knot. She sat beside him, brushing the damp hair from his forehead. "It's okay, buddy. We'll get through this," she whispered. But even to her own ears, the reassurance sounded hollow. Would it always be like this? Every step forward only leading her back 2 steps? Her mind buzzed with worry, flitting between solutions and tormenting possibilities. Maybe a neighbor could help? Perhaps they had cough syrup to spare? But had she already exhausted their generosity by relying on them for groceries? Every thread of community felt strained, stretched to its limit with her burdens. With each quiet moment, the echo of anguish from outside amplified in her mind. A voice nudged at her conscience. What if she could help that mother? What if she reached out, offering not just empathy but support? The thought both excited and terrified her. Was it possible to break her cycle of self-preservation and share her struggles, potentially creating a lifeline for someone else? As she weighed her thoughts, the idea blossomed. Could she organize a small gathering? Something simple, just a few neighbors coming together? She could facilitate a conversation about what resources were available locally, perhaps even a shared meal where they could exchange ideas and advice. Yeah, that could work, she muttered to herself, drawing strength from the possibility. Slowly, she began to sketch a plan. Maybe if she framed it less as a demand for help, and more as a communal effort, she might ease her own burdens while amplifying others. The notion of collaboration felt invigorating. Still, a deep-seated fear loomed over her. What if she failed? What if her plan flopped, and she inadvertently deepened her isolation? The ghosts of past failures haunted her confidence, but the greater fear of doing nothing was far more unbearable than the prospect of failing. With newfound resolve, Emily grabbed a notebook from the kitchen and began jotting down ideas, the potential names of neighbors she could invite, food they might prepare together, and a budget that wouldn't put her further in debt. In committing her thoughts to paper, she felt a shift within herself. Each word held the possibility of transformation, both for her and others. Meanwhile, Jack sat in his office, unease swelling in his chest as he contemplated his philanthropic efforts. He had longed to connect on a deeper level, to form genuine relationships with those he sought to help. As he pondered the cracks in the fabric of his life, his loneliness, the feeling of disconnected giving, he stumbled upon a local advocacy group. Their mission to empower low-income families intrigued him. Could he channel his affluence into something more tangible, perhaps partnering with Emily? The thought surged through him. Maybe he could gather resources and make a real difference beyond just dollars and cents. But before he could dwell further, a text pinged on his phone, an invitation to an informal community meeting at a neighbor's house. An immediate tide of curiosity washed over him. Would this be the chance he had been looking for to forge meaningful connections? To not just observe problems from a distance, but immerse himself in solutions. As both Emily and Jack tentatively engaged their plans, the weight of impending decisions loomed large around them. Would their paths converge in a way that could shake them free from their solitude? The anticipation thrummed like a pulse, each moment building into a crescendo of uncertainty, holding the promise of change just out of reach. Emily's fingers danced nervously over the pages of her notebook, excitement and anxiety intertwining with each new idea she penned. Her mind raced with the potential of her gathering. What if she could create a ripple effect that extended far beyond her cramped living room? A twinge of hope accompanied the thought, yet it was immediately tempered by self-doubt. Would her neighbors truly respond? What if they deemed her effort a trivial distraction in their own chaotic lives? As she drafted a list of potential attendees, Emily caught herself second-guessing her selection. She added Judith from down the hall, a single mother with 2 kids who always seemed to wear exhaustion like a badge, as well as Martin, an amiable retiree who had once offered to fix her leaky faucet. Each name made Emily consider those moments of connection she had dismissed in the past. Wasn't this her chance to shift from isolation to engagement? Each tick on her list was both a commitment and a confrontation. She remembered her previous attempts to reach out, only to retreat when her invitations were met with lukewarm responses. Battling the ghosts of past failures, she clenched the pen, concentrating instead on how those relationships could evolve through this new framework. Each name represented not just a neighbor but a potential ally, a shared journey forward. Maybe this will be different, she murmured, half to herself and half to Jamie, who remained cozily wrapped in his blanket. She glanced at him, feeling her resolve harden once more. For his sake, she had to try. She was not just mothering him. She was also taking ownership of her life. Her list completed, Emily took a deep breath, preparing to approach her neighbors. The gathering wouldn't be just about sharing food. It would be an opportunity for genuine discourse, for vulnerability and growth. She could create a space where stories could weave together, forming the very fabric of the community she had long yearned for, yet the practicalities loomed large. Emily's thoughts ricocheted between budgeting for dinner and worrying about whether she could keep Jamie's condition stable until the gathering. Every expense felt like a decision involving sacrifice, yet deep within her grew the conviction that a unified effort would help defray those costs. Meanwhile, Jack's unease morphed into a palpable thrill as he contemplated the simple text that had sparked a flurry of possibilities. The invitation to the community meeting wasn't just an opportunity to exchange pleasantries. It was a chance to turn vague intentions into defined actions. He envisioned himself sitting among his neighbors, discussing their needs and frustrations, brimming with ideas as he offered support. Would the conversation pivot toward tangible solutions? Would he muster the courage to reveal his vision of collaboration? The thought electrified him, awakening dormant aspirations to leverage his resources meaningfully. For too long, he had been an observer, but now he felt the stirrings of becoming an integral part of the very fabric he had long spoken about. In preparation, he dug through his files to compile useful information, local resources and contacts that could empower those striving to make ends meet. With each paper he thumbed through, he imagined matching people like Emily, with their fervor and resilience, alongside his capacity for change. As he glanced outside at the thinning daylight, a sense of urgency gripped him. He couldn't just attend this meeting. He needed to make an impact. If he could only find a way to connect with Emily, perhaps they could pool their insights and resources. The gravity of his decision loomed before him. This was no longer about mere charity. It was about building something lasting, support structures that could uplift them both. The possibilities felt intoxicating yet daunting. As the hours progressed, Emily began reaching out to her neighbors. Jack meticulously crafted his notes and prepared a welcoming demeanor, but an unsettling thought flickered in his mind. It took more than intention to forge real relationships. Could he strip away the layers of his privilege to connect genuinely with those around him? As both he and Emily embarked on paths of discovery and engagement, the pulse of their lives intensified, and the contours of their choices began to overlap. Would their efforts align in unforeseen ways, pushing them toward a shared destiny they hadn't anticipated? The following morning dawned with a sense of quiet determination in Emily's heart. Staring at her reflection in the mirror, she took stock of the woman staring back. The frizz of her hair and the shadows under her eyes spoke of sleepless nights. But there was a spark within those soft brown irises, an ember of resolve. Today was the day she would break the silence that had long cocooned her life. With Jamie still asleep, she moved intentionally around the kitchen, each action deliberate as she prepared a few dishes for the gathering. Emily's past failures crept into her mind, whispering fears that the food wouldn't be enough, or that no one would show. But she forced those thoughts to the recesses of her heart, reminding herself that this wasn't solely about the meal. It was about connection, about breaking down the walls that isolation had built. After a few hours of cooking, her apartment smelled of warm bread and simmering stew. She could sense the tense energy building within her, each tick of the clock echoing her anticipation. A soft knock at the door jolted her from her thoughts. It was Judith, holding a bag of groceries and a bright smile that somehow chased away the morning's shadows. "Thought I'd bring a little something to share," she said, stepping into the warmth of Emily's home. "Thank you. It means so much to me," Emily replied. Her voice quavered slightly, revealing her unease. They exchanged pleasantries, but as they prepared the dishes together, deeper conversations began to bloom. Judith shared tales of exhaustion as a single mother, her laughter tinged with sorrow as she recounted moments that weighed heavily on her spirit. Emily found herself listening intently, a mixture of camaraderie and concern swelling within her. For the first time, she realized that her neighbors were not mere acquaintances. They were allies sharing the burdens of their lives. As they chopped vegetables, Emily felt a subtle shift within her, a resolve to not just host, but to embrace others' stories, to empower them with the space she was creating. By the time Martin arrived with a pot of his famous chili, her heart was pounding, not from anxiety, but from hope. Meanwhile, on the other side of the building, Jack was pacing in his small living room, rehearsing what he would say. His notes lay open on the table, but there was something intangible that gripped him. What if his ability to help didn't fully materialize in the community context? What if his privilege became a barrier rather than an instrument of change? With each breath he took, he focused on connecting sincerely, not just offering solutions from a distance. He needed to approach Emily with openness, recognizing his role as one among many, not as the savior. He threw on a jacket and stepped out, feeling the weight of purpose heavy upon his shoulders. As he arrived at Emily's apartment, he could see people milling about, laughter spilling into the hallway. Emily's door was cracked open, and he took a deep breath. The scent of food wafting outward was inviting, acting as a beacon against his doubt. With each step towards the door, his heart raced. What if this was his moment? The moment to break through his barriers and connect on a deeper level? Would he be able to share his insights without overshadowing Emily's vulnerabilities? Inside, the gathering was in full swing. Stories intermingled. Laughter resonated. Emily, amidst it all, realized that she had tapped into something profound against the odds. The transformations were not solely within her, but echoed in the connections she was fostering with others. As Jack entered, Emily's eyes met his. Something electric passed between them, a shared understanding that what was unfolding here was more than just a friendly gathering. It was a step towards something transformative, a chance to forge new paths together. But just as the laughter crescendoed, a rift of anxiety unfurled within her. The distractions of everyday life began to seep through the cracks, threatening to remind them of the struggles they faced. Could this fleeting moment of connection withstand the realities awaiting them outside? Would they seize the opportunity to lean on each other when the shadows lingered? As those questions lingered, Emily's resolve flickered. Little did she know that outside her walls, a windswept news alert would soon rock their very foundations, challenging everything they had just begun to build. Something was about to change their direction irreversibly. Emily stood at the periphery of the gathering, the laughter and animated conversation wrapping around her like a warm blanket. People mingled, dipping into shared memories and concerns, creating a tapestry of experiences that held a collective heartbeat. Yet, as the warmth of connection enveloped her, a chill of dread snaked through her veins, intensified by the unsettling certainty that change lingered just outside her door. Across the room, Jack was engaged in a deep conversation with Judith, absorbed in listening. Emily admired how he navigated the personal stories with genuine empathy, but an insistent flutter in her stomach nudged her. She was acutely aware of her own thoughts spiraling back to the darker corners of her mind, reminding her of the stark realities they were all trying to escape. With a sense of urgency, she moved toward the small couch, where Anna, a young mother, sat cradling her infant. Anna's face radiated joy, but Emily noticed the tension lingering in her brow, the kind that spoke of sleepless nights and worries that never seemed to fade. Approaching her, Emily took a seat, forcing a smile to suppress her own rising tide of anxiety. "How are you holding up, Anna?" Emily asked gently, feeling more like a confidant than a host. "Oh, taking it one day at a time," Anna replied, though her eyes betrayed a sadness she didn't voice. "Sometimes it just feels overwhelming." There it was, the familiar weight of shared struggle. Emily paused, conscious of the balance between vulnerability and strength. She wanted to reach out, to uplift, but what did she have to offer? Would her own insecurities dilute whatever strength she might muster? "Do you need anything?" she ventured, immediately second-guessing herself. What could she possibly say that would resonate amidst Anna's concerns? Before Anna could respond, a sharp notification rang out from the television in the background, interrupting the moment with urgent clarity. The news anchor's voice sliced through the chatter, laden with gravity. "We interrupt this program with breaking news. The local milk production shortage has reached a critical level, impacting families across the city. Reports indicate that some mothers are struggling to feed their babies as supplies dwindle." Emily felt her heart drop. The implications of the announcement gripped her. Suddenly, the laughter faded into a hollow echo, and the weight of reality pressed down on them all. She could see it in everyone's eyes. The unspoken fear that something they depended on was slipping away, the foundation of their small community rattled by an external force. Anna's expression darkened, her hands trembling slightly as she cradled her baby closer. "My baby. She's been fussier, and now I hear this." There was a hint of desperation in her voice that struck Emily like a physical blow. In that moment, the transformative energy of the gathering began to shift. What had been an evening of connection was morphing into a stark realization of their vulnerability. Emily's heart raced with an electrifying urgency as the necessity to act crystallized within her. No longer could she see herself merely as a host creating comfort. She was part of a larger narrative, alongside her neighbors. Deep within, she questioned her prior hesitations. Wasn't this what connection was truly about? Standing together amidst chaos, meeting crisis with compassion? Jack's voice suddenly broke through the disarray. "We'll figure something out," he assured Anna, bolstering the fading flicker of hope. But Emily sensed it, a vital decision circling like a storm above them. Should she lend her voice to his, or could she provide something deeper, more personal? The realization struck her hard. Her inherent knowledge of cooking, of food security, could serve as more than just comfort. It could forge a remedy for the anxieties crowding the room. Could she facilitate a network, finding alternative resources for those in need? With the tension in the air thickening and the undeniable call for action sharpening her resolve, Emily felt the fire stir within her once more. Yet the very core of her previously sheltered self hesitated at the thought of stepping into the unknown. But as Anna's gaze sought reassurance, Emily readied herself to move beyond her fears and into the fray of change. She was on the brink of claiming the purpose she had once felt eluded her. In that pivotal moment, with decisions looming, time stood still, as both guests and the whispering shadows of reality pressed in on them. What could emerge from the embers of uncertainty if she chose to ignite a deeper change? The questions spilled over. Would they rise to meet the challenge? Would their new connections withstand the storm brewing just outside? As the world outside threatened to reshape everything they had begun to build, Emily's resolve honed to a razor's edge, knowing she was about to confront not just the external chaos, but her own fears swirling in tandem. The moment had come to face both the crisis and herself. Emily's heart raced as she stood, wrestling with the tidal wave of emotions crashing over her. The news had shattered the fragile normalcy of the evening, and she recognized the urgency lurking in every corner of the room. With every passing moment, her uncertainty morphed into determination. It was time to step forward. Everything she had hesitated to acknowledge about herself surged forth as she glanced around at the concerned faces. This wasn't just another moment of socializing. It was a crucible. Here, Fear met community, and they were at a crossroads. She inhaled deeply, drawing resolve from the depths of her knowledge. Cooking was not merely a hobby for her. It held echoes of family traditions, meals shared over laughter, and rituals of sustenance that spanned generations. "Everyone," Emily's voice cut through the murmurs, steady despite the turmoil within. She felt her legs shake as more eyes turned toward her. "I think I might have an idea that could help us figure this out." A mixture of curiosity and skepticism flickered across the room. She observed Jack's encouraging nod and Anna's desperate gaze, clinging to hope. "I can organize a food-sharing group," Emily continued. "We can pool resources and connect with local farms, maybe even arrange deliveries from them." The words surged from her, a spontaneous plan taking shape. The notion of coming together seemed daunting, yet thrilling. "We could create a list of anyone who has excess supplies or resources. It's about utilizing what we already have." For a moment, silence filled the air, each individual lost in thought. Would it succeed? Would they rally together? The thrill of engaging with this challenge sent a jolt through her body. "Emily, that's a great idea," Jack encouraged, a smile breaking through the tension. "You already know many of the local farmers, don't you? You could leverage those connections." "Yes." Emily felt an infusion of energy, fueled by the validation. "I can reach out to the ones I know and see if we can coordinate. We might even find others who want to help." Anna, still cradling her baby, spoke softly, her voice trembling. "I'd be happy to help with anything I can." Emily watched as others slowly nodded in agreement, their initial hesitation beginning to dissolve like ice under the sun. It sparked something profound within her, a growing belief in her ability to lead. Each whisper of support felt like a soft hand on her back, urging her forward. And just like that, Emily found herself orchestrating concerns into action. Her mind raced with strategies. Who had dairy? Who could transport supplies? What local organizations maintained ties with dairy farms? The possibilities shimmered before her, as embers of determination glowed warmly within. As the details lined up in her mind like soldiers ready for battle, she sensed a shift in her own identity. No longer was she the peripheral figure swathed in insecurity. She was becoming a catalyst for change, stepping into a role she had underestimated. Yet, as excitement bloomed, doubt still lingered at the edges of her consciousness. What if her efforts fell flat? What if she couldn't keep it together when faced with inevitable setbacks? The thoughts clawed at her, momentarily unsettling her newfound resolve. "Okay, let's gather ideas," she called. "Meet me here tomorrow to start brainstorming. We can all bring whatever we have." The resolve she felt was palpable, but along with it came a rush of reality. She wasn't just creating a plan. She was opening herself up to scrutiny, criticism, and even failure. The unease danced with exhilaration. The familiar terrain of her life was shifting, and with each word she spoke, the emerging leader within her blossomed. As the guests began talking amongst themselves, working through their own lists of contacts and ideas, Emily felt the energy in the room transform. Hope replaced despair. Yet, glimmers of doubts intertwined with the revival, creating a storm beneath her surface. Could she really pull this off? Was she strong enough to keep the momentum alive amid any fallout? With determination forged under pressure, she resolved to confront those fears head-on. If she faltered, it would be her own responsibility to rise again. The time had come to embrace every part of this challenge. Just as the laughter and chatter filled the space once more, Emily realized that tonight marked the beginning of something bigger than the end of an unsettling evening. This was a pivot toward discovery, and a defining chapter brimming with potential. The sound of a breaking news alert from the television echoed again, splintering her thoughts. The anchor's voice carried the weight of the crisis. Yet this time, Emily understood it was just the backdrop to a much more personal narrative currently unfolding. How would she face what lay ahead? And, if she dared to engage with the tumult of both the world and her own identity. What revelations awaited her on this uncharted journey? Emily spent the overnight hours wrestling with plans, possibilities, and ever-looming doubts. Sleep eluded her, replaced by a thrumming energy that rattled inside her chest. The prospect of leading a food-sharing initiative had ignited something she scarcely recognized. A sense of responsibility mingled with a necessity to prove not only her capability to others, but also to herself. She needed to construct a framework that would withstand scrutiny and emerge resilient, but couldn't shake the nagging thought that the weight of it might just crush her. As dawn crept into the sky, painting the world in soft hues of pink, Emily felt a tangible shift within herself. Sunlight, sparking into her kitchen through the worn windows, galvanized her into action. She brewed a pot of coffee, inhaling the bitter aroma as it filled her home. Coffee fuel was just the beginning. She needed to lay a foundation before the meeting. With pen poised over paper, she started mapping out the dynamics of her plan. Who could contribute? She listed local farmers and merchants, neighbors who might harbor resources or ideas. Scanning her notes, she felt the tightening grip of anxiety. But each name she wrote reinforced her emerging resolve. They weren't just a collection of people. They were allies. She was not alone. At 9 o'clock, the familiar faces began gathering again in her living room. Emily, buoyed by caffeine and purpose, greeted them each with an eagerness that she hadn't realized she possessed. Conversations flickered with enthusiasm, and for the first time in ages, her small space buzzed with camaraderie. A circle formed as she stood, finally at the center of it, commanding attention with a sense of focused clarity. "Thank you all for coming. I'm really excited about what we can achieve together," she began, her voice steady. This was her moment, one where she needed to draw on every bit of courage from deep within. As ideas flowed and were volleyed around the room, Emily felt a sense of exhilaration combined with an unfamiliar sense of power. They discussed logistics, divided responsibilities, and started imagining the endless possibilities of what they could achieve. Emily was no longer a peripheral player. She was equal parts conductor, strategist, and visionary. Yet while she soaked in the camaraderie, an uninvited ember of fear crept back into her thoughts. What if one of the farmers decided not to help? What if entire networks collapsed under simple misunderstandings? Every now and then, an undercurrent of tension nudged her, but with each suggestion made and every smile exchanged, a reassuring hum countered her anxieties. It was a delicate dance, energetic synergy mingled with personal hesitation. After hours of brainstorming, they had crafted a rough outline for the food-sharing initiative. A shopping list emerged, names were assigned, and contact details exchanged. Emily felt a profound sense of achievement swell in her chest. Yet, her mind didn't quiet. What had just occurred required follow-through. In the days that followed, she faced the harsh reality of logistics. Calls to farmers spurred both excitement and heartache. Some readily joined, while others declined, citing their own dwindling supplies. The disappointment stung, each rejection parsing through her newfound confidence. But Emily learned quickly. Resilience wasn't about never experiencing failure. It was about rising regardless. With her breath steady and her focus unwavering, she found herself at the brink of her next challenge. A larger grocery cooperative had heard of her venture and reached out, offering surplus deliveries, but demanding a cohesive plan from her end. This was the moment she'd been waiting for, yet it came with its own set of pressures. "Meet me here tonight. I have a proposal to present," Emily texted her small group, a new wave of resolve washing over her. An invitation to think bigger lay ahead of her. Could she truly manage the expectations of not only her neighbors, but also a larger collaboration? As the day shifted into dusk, the weight of uncertainty bore down on her. Would she rise to meet this new opportunity or allow it to slip through her fingers? Emily paused, catching her reflection in the window, a determined figure shifting in the fading light, yearning for persistence amid the rising storm. The night ahead was anchored in promise, But Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the road ahead carried more than mere logistics. It was a journey that would demand the most authentic version of herself. Could she bring forth the visionary she now had inklings of? Or would her careful facade falter under pressure? The evening air hung heavy with expectation, as Emily prepared to meet her group once again. She paced her small living room, rehearsing the words she intended to speak. Her stomach churned with a mix of excitement and fear. This was not merely a discussion. It was a pivotal moment that would determine the course of her initiative. The grocery cooperative's interest infused her with adrenaline, but also an oppressive weight of responsibility. The clock ticked ominously as the door swung open, and one by one her team trickled in, faces illuminated by the low light around them. As they settled in, Emily observed the energy in the room, intense and electric. They were all looking to her, and she felt the charge of accountability ignite an unexpected determination within. "Thank you all for being here," she began, deliberately steadying her voice. "Tonight, I want to solidify our proposal with the cooperative. They're ready to offer us surplus supplies, but we need a plan that demonstrates our viability and vision." The words tumbled out faster than she intended, betraying her nerves. She quickly recalibrated. "Let's outline our priorities." As she spoke, the ideas started to flow, sparking a lively discussion. Names were tossed around: local charities, schools in need, and families struggling to put food on the table. Emily felt herself getting swept up in the enthusiasm, yet the undercurrent of doubt nagged at her. What if they couldn't deliver? What if their plans were empty promises? Minutes turned into hours, and fueled by shared passion, they built a robust framework. Emily facilitated brainstorming sessions, allowing each voice to contribute, and in doing so, she discovered her own ability to guide complex conversations. She realized she had a knack for linking ideas together, creating a vision that resonated with all of them. As momentum grew, she took a moment to inhale deeply and assess her own reactions. She had transitioned from being simply an organizer to a leader, a role she had never fully embraced before. Was she capable of maintaining this energy, this sense of purpose against her history of self-doubt? Then came the turning point. One of the volunteers, a local teacher named Maya, voiced a concern that echoed within Emily's mind. "What will we do if the cooperative expects more from us than we can manage? We need to be realistic." The weight of that question hung heavy in the air. Emily's heart raced. Could she be realistic enough? She tried to quell the rising tide of uncertainty. "I believe we can create a solid framework based on what we discussed, but we need to plan for variability. Let's set goals we can track and adapt as necessary." It was a risky proposition, but her belief ignited a flicker of confidence amongst her team. Minutes later, they ended the meeting with a commitment to refine their proposal further. As her team departed, Emily closed the door behind them, leaning against it. Exhaustion swept over her, but exhilaration quickly replaced it. She felt like she had stepped closer to defining her own potential. Yet the question lingered. Was she truly capable of sustaining this momentum when it ultimately mattered? The next morning, as sunlight streamed through her kitchen window, Emily found herself glued to her laptop. She combed through notes, anxiously formulating the next steps. She drafted emails, coordinated follow-ups, and conducted research on logistics, all while harboring anxiety about the cooperative's expectations. The pressure amplified with each keystroke. As the deadline for their proposal loomed, Emily went from confident organizer to frantically questioning her every decision. The spiral back into doubt clawed at her, and she thought about the moments of connection she'd had the previous night. Did those glimmers of hope mean anything if she couldn't follow through? Resolute to quell her fears, she made a decision. She decided to reach out to a mentor who had experience working with nonprofits. It was time to seek guidance from someone who had weathered the storms of uncertainty. As the evening approached, she dialed the number. The stakes felt impossibly high, and if she faltered, all her work could potentially unravel. Fear sprawled beneath her resolve. Would she uncover the clarity she needed, or would it lead her down a path of even greater self-doubt? Emily held onto the phone, heart racing, awaiting the voice on the other end. This call could either bolster her confidence or expose her vulnerabilities, and she could already feel the weight of both possibilities pressing heavily upon her. The call connected, and the familiar voice of her mentor, Nathan, resonated on the other end. "Emily, it's good to hear from you. What's going on?" His calm demeanor immediately soothed her frayed nerves. "I'm in deep with this grocery cooperative proposal," she confessed, her tone trembling between excitement and apprehension. "It feels huge, but I'm struggling to see if I can truly deliver what they expect. I want to make sure our initiative can succeed, but—" Her voice faltered, the weight of her insecurities threatening to pull her under. "Starting something like this is always daunting," Nathan replied, the wisdom in his words grounded her. "What specifically are you afraid of? What keeps you awake at night?" The question felt like a lifeline, a moment to gather her chaotic thoughts. "I worry that the cooperative might demand more than we can give. We've made all these promises, potential partnerships." She bit her lip. "What if we can't meet expectations? What if this all falls apart?" "Expectations can be a double-edged sword, Emily," Nathan said gently. "Setting realistic goals is crucial, but so is maintaining your vision. Can you remember the reason you wanted to start this in the first place?" The floodgates of memory opened. She recalled those moments in her community, seeing families struggle with food insecurity. The faces of children, wet cheeks, peering from behind empty food pantry shelves. The gnawing ache of helplessness when she realized they needed more than mere intentions. "I wanted to create something meaningful, a safety net where there wasn't one," she murmured. "Something sustainable." "Then focus on that," Nathan encouraged. "Draw from that passion. Make sure your team is aligned with that core purpose. Lay out an action plan that reflects both ambition and feasibility. It'll provide clarity to you and them." Her thoughts raced as Nathan spoke. Clarity was emerging like a beacon. She needed to redefine their ambitions in a way that allowed for flexibility while staying true to their mission. "Can we adapt our goals as we go?" she asked, her resolve strengthening. "Absolutely. Continuous evaluation is your friend. Create feedback loops, allow space for iteration, and the plan will evolve as necessary. But you have to trust yourself and your team's capability to navigate that journey." Emily felt a surge of courage. This was a turning point. "So you're saying I need to embrace the risk rather than shy away from it?" "Yes. Risk is an inherent part of growth. You won't have all the answers up front, but giving your team space to maneuver will empower them. It'll strengthen your resolve," he replied. The conversation energized her. Emboldened by Nathan's advice, Emily began drafting a more flexible proposal outline, integrating a system to monitor progress. Her internal dialogue shifted. Instead of an anxious spiral of doubt, there was a new current of determination driving her actions. As the call drew to a close, Nathan's parting words hit home. "Remember, every successful initiative has uncertain moments. It's how you embrace those that define you as a leader. Do you feel more centered?" With a newfound purpose, she nodded, even though he couldn't see it. "Yes, I really do. Thank you, Nathan. I know what I need to do next." After hanging up, she found herself staring at her nearing deadline. The pressure still existed, but now it felt more like a challenge than an insurmountable burden. Somewhere within her, the flickering fire of belief found its flame. She was learning to harness her uncertainties rather than allow them to consume her. Emily took a deep breath. Tonight, she would call her team together once more, this time not just to discuss logistics, but to empower them with this new vision. She would share her tactics for navigating risk and strategies for resilience. It was about to become a collaboration with the promise of growth, not merely survival, but thriving together. Her heart raced at the thought of leading with this renewed clarity, but it was a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Just as she was about to dive into the next round of planning, an email notification caught her eye. The cooperative had sent an acknowledgement, one that hinted at additional queries about their capabilities. The urgency pulled her forward, heart racing anew. Emily had to prepare for the potential conversations that lay ahead. Would she truly face the scrutiny and expectations unfolding from this new interaction? The moment had come to confront the stakes of her ambition. Emily felt a renewed sense of purpose invigorate her as she gathered her team for the final round of discussions. The sun hung low over the horizon, casting a warm glow into her living room, where chairs encircled piles of notes and charts. Each member of her group held stories and dreams, and tonight, Emily wanted to fuse those together into one coherent narrative that showcased not just struggle, but potential. "Thank you all for being here," she began, locking eyes with Jack and Judith, who nodded in affirmation. "This moment is crucial. We're not just nailing down details, we're forming the backbone for something larger than us. We're showing the cooperative that we can not only meet expectations, but exceed them with our commitment." A palpable energy filled the space. They exchanged ideas, and for every challenge Emily presented, her teammates volleyed back with solutions. They strategized for flexibility, welcoming adaptability in their approach. It was a revelation. Emily felt the residual tension within her begin to ease. Each response reinforced her growing confidence as she saw the resilience mirrored in their faces. "Let's outline the impact we can have," Emily asserted, as ink flowed from her pen onto paper, marking each impactful potential. "By pooling our resources, we won't just get by. We'll establish a model for community solidarity that can inspire not just us, but others in the area as well." Leaving no stone unturned, they expanded on potential partnerships, shared visions, and collaborative roles. Jack brought insights from his network, Judith shared feedback from other single parents, and Emily's own journey grounded their discussions in lived experiences. It was more than planning. It was the unfolding of a shared mission, a mosaic of aspirations set against a common challenge. Hours passed, filled with momentum that challenged past doubts. With every passing minute, the shadows that had once loomed over Emily's heart began to recede, replaced by the light of collective effort. She no longer felt like a solitary figure on the edge of chaos. They were in it together, a coalition of strength, capable of rising above their individual burdens. As the meeting wrapped up, Emily's last point hung in the air, a call for unified spirit. "Let's not just focus on reaching this cooperative's expectations, but also on what impact we can create. We have the power to change lives in meaningful ways, including our own." When her team dispersed, the living room still buzzed. She felt exhilarated. She had embraced the uncomfortable and faced the whirlwind of emotions, emerging with clarity and direction. They would submit their proposal soon, and the response might be daunting. But now, she was anchored in the support of her lively community. Days later, the cooperative's response arrived via email. Emily felt her heart leap as she opened it, fingers trembling. They were impressed with the proposal, acknowledging its flexibility and potential impact. "They want to partner," she breathed, disbelief painting her voice. They were officially committed to collaborating. This was no longer an abstract dream. It was a promise of real and sustained change, proving she was more capable than she had ever dared to believe. Emily's transformation had come full circle. From a mother overwhelmed by her responsibilities to a recognized leader, she had forged connections that would lift her community. Her actions had ignited not just hope within herself, but everyone they touched. While the uncertainty of future challenges remained, she now held a solid foundation upon which to build. No longer enslaved by self-doubt, Emily stepped into her own skin with confidence. Her identity unraveled into something newly crafted. She was an enabler of change, a voice of compassion. The accolades she sought were not merely superficial. They lay in the ripples of community empowerment she had instigated. With Jamie standing beside her, proudly watching her unfold before his eyes, she realized she had conquered her internal battles and solidified her place within the tapestry of their lives. The echoes of her earlier self faded behind her as she embraced the new role that intertwined both her personal journey and the well-being of others. Her culmination was a profound achievement, marked by the connections she had nurtured and the community she had helped flourish. Emily stood resolute, her heart swelling with pride, a sentiment that was both grounded in reality, yet filled with boundless possibilities. Now, it was time to take action on the next step and champion resilience far beyond what they had accomplished thus far. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support is crucial. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear your thoughts. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second to share. You need to support us. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of these actions.